This is Golden Years, a roadmap to navigate retirement with Mark Cordner, the podcast.
There's a new study by Ipsos who asked financial advisors if they're adjusting retirement plans for the current economy. And about 65% said yes. Many of them are using a strategy that they have never used before. It's called an annuity. Yes, I know it's the A word when it comes to planning for retirement. A lot of folks panic about this, but what is it about an annuity that is appealing to retirees today where, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, it wasn't as much?
Well, that's actually an interesting observation because for the first 20 years of my career, that was kind of verboten. That word was forbidden. It was not something that people really like to talk about. And now we're seeing trillions of dollars flood into that marketplace because people are just dealing with a lot more anxiety than we used to. You know, we had just bull runs, as it were, in the market for so long, and people just kind of got heady. But as we approach retirement, people start thinking differently. They start thinking naturally about conserving or preserving what they've built up over the years. And the wonderful thing about annuities is there's different types, of course. We can get principal protection, meaning we can get money out of the market growing safely so that when the market turns down, we've got a place that's contractually guaranteed to be safe. The other thing that's so appealing, I think, far more than anything right now is the guaranteed income streams that annuities can create. Because an annuity was developed 2,000 years ago. I mean, this is age-old vehicles, and they've been around to guarantee income that people can't outlive, and that's incredibly comforting to people. You know, I own 7 annuities personally, and for different reasons, but the biggest reason is that when I'm dead and gone, I want my wife to, she already knows she will have absolute assurance of income. It may not be in the Bill Gates range. It certainly is not in the Bill Gates range, but she will have income that she cannot outlive, and that gives incredible peace of mind because it gives her the ability then to focus on family matters, you know, children with disabilities and things like that that are more important. So it's contractually guaranteed assurance is what makes annuities so popular. So you want to check out what you're doing. I mean, annuity doesn't mean just one thing. It means 1,000 different things. And so people need to research this. And if the whole concept is new to folks, would say get a hold of us, talk to us. It's not the only thing we do. It's one tool among many, but it's a wonderfully unique tool that provides contractually guaranteed benefits. And if those words, you know, appeal to people, then give us a call. We can absolutely help you with this. I'm a firm advocate that it should be a big part of our plans. When we use them, we can typically get more income, often twice as much income out of that as we can out of a securities-based portfolio, which then allows us to leave more money growing in the market, which is really the long-term goal, to grow those assets, to beat inflation over time, and also to leave money to our loved ones. So there's wonderful reasons. But again, it all boils down to contractual guarantees. That's what's driving this trend right now, contractual guarantees. It just gives peace of mind.
Absolutely. I actually heard somebody the other day call it the era of guaranteed income. You're saying it's the era of annuities, right? I mean, everybody's thinking about that, looking at that, because at the end of the day, that is the number one fear when it comes to planning for retirement is running out of money. So much so that just back into the survey I mentioned here, it says 95% of pre-retirees listed that income protection is key to their retirement dream. And I mean, that makes sense, right? You're used to getting this paycheck every 2 weeks or what have you. And now when that paycheck stops and you have this big pile of money, eventually in your mind or in reality, you see it going down. But if you have this income continuously coming in, similar to a paycheck, it makes you feel a little bit better. We used to call it mailbox money. You know, now it's direct deposit money.
We call them play checks. Tom Hegna came up with that term, play checks. You know, there's been some other interesting studies done that show that people who have contractually guaranteed or guaranteed sources of income live longer, they are happier, and they have less stress. So happier and less stress makes sense, you know, when your income's guaranteed. But the fact that people live longer as a result is really an interesting outcrop of that study. Things to think about, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, you're living longer because you have less stress. You know, the checks coming in, the money's coming in, you're paying yourself in retirement, guys. Essentially replacing that paycheck with what you just said called a play check. So if this is a conversation that you're open to having, again, there's many, many different types of annuities. Is one a fit for you? Well, nobody knows. You got to call and you sit down with Mark and you say, hey, let's do an income review and let's see if an annuity is going to be able to fill a gap here and there. It may be great for you. It may not be. Everybody's situation is different. If you'd like to have that conversation, give a call today. That phone number 702-996-4050. 702-996-4050. 4050. You can also visit the website mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. Another study here from the Nationwide Retirement Institute, Mark, says about 55% regret how they've saved, and they wish they'd started sooner and they'd put away more. I think that's a lot of us, right? I coulda, shoulda, woulda. Well, that's not all the survey found. Here's Carrie Hannon on Yahoo Finance.
I think that what happens is, and what this study shows is people who are getting nervous like this, especially these new retirees, they're actually starting to pay attention to their investment portfolios, which is fine on one hand, but they're making changes. And we all know that often might not be your best move, to go shifting things around just when things are a bit rocky.
Yeah, making changes, kind of get emotional about it, making some of those emotional decisions could essentially hurt you more than it's going to help you. So why is pre-retirement or the early retirement years, Mark, why is this the worst time to start making emotional portfolio changes?
First off, I want to echo, I think she's correct. I think she's absolutely correct. People start second-guessing themselves, and it has long-term repercussions that they often can't foresee. And so I always say, come visit with us. If you're dealing with anxiety, if you're feeling uncertain, let's visit. Let's get a second opinion on this, because, I've had 34 years of talking to people about these things. It gives a certain amount of perspective, and decades of educational programs that give perspective, and that perspective is what so many people lack. We don't lack information. There's too much information, frankly, out there now. It's how to sift it and have some wisdom come out of that. So, yeah, it's just that the long-term repercussions are so bad. Most people have been so accustomed to aggressively trying to grow their assets, and then when we enter retirement, we step into an entirely new phase when preservation is really the key. What got us to this point of success is not what's going to keep us there. I always use this analogy, and everyone's heard me say this, climbing up a mountain is entirely different than coming down the backside of the mountain, because it's on the backside, on that descent, where the fatalities occur. There's just different issues involved. But I think this speaker, I think she's absolutely correct that people do tend to start second-guessing themselves, because as they enter retirement, initially there's a lot of uncertainty because it's just new. And this is just human nature, it's new. And so people maybe start second-guessing themselves, because the reality after a few months of retirement is that it doesn't feel like vacation anymore, and people realize they truly are out of the workforce, and that limited amount of money that they've accumulated has to last. Most people don't get a do-over. They've got to make it last. And so one thing that needs to come out of this is a certain amount of flexibility. People need to be able to adapt their expectations. But I just always say, don't second-guess yourself. We can't go back in time. Don't look back and regret. Let's just look forward. Let's just visit, because when stress comes, we can relieve that with a little perspective, some educated and experienced perspective. Come visit with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's hard not to get emotional. I mean, honestly, this is the most personal decision you're ever going to make in your life. So, it is human nature, as you're talking about, to look at some things and have a little anxiety, uncertainty, that perspective that kind of gets in there. But this is where Mark comes in. Allow him to put his decades, I'm talking over 3 decades of experience, to work for you. He's there to answer those questions. He's there to make sure that you have that confidence moving into retirement. Again, it all goes with this roadmap that we talk about here on the show each and every single week, putting together your very own retirement roadmap. That phone number, 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. That website, mygoldenyearsroadmap.com. All right, Mark, you travel quite a bit. Have you ever had an airport moment? This is what I'm talking about. You're sweaty, your bag is cutting into your shoulder, your gate feels like it's a million miles away, and then an airport cart pulls up. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm saved. I can ride in this. Well, until the driver drops you at the wrong gate. And by the time you power walk all the way back to where you're supposed to be, your plane is gone. Now you're stuck for 2 days. You're getting airport meals. It's like paying a mortgage just to eat and drink there, because the system stamped you now a no-show for something that you didn't even do. So let's talk about how taxes is similar to this when it comes to retirement. One perfectly legal move can quietly set off a chain reaction that you don't feel until the bill shows up, right?
Oh, yeah. Unexpected consequences. My There's a lot of these ripple effect kind of things that people don't realize. I mean, I think with required minimum distributions, for example, that's the number one mistake people make, is not taking the minimum out that they're required to. When we have deferred taxes on our retirement accounts, we hit age 73, the government's tired of waiting for their piece. And some people know that they're allowed to wait until April 1st of the following year. And so they do that, but then they don't realize they're going to have to take 2 distributions that year. And so, again, one of those ripple effects. Another is, people do like these Roth conversions, and they don't realize there's a ripple effect in that the Roth conversion is usually a great idea, but it layers income on top of your other income, and that could push you into a higher bracket, not only for income taxes, but more painfully into what's called IRMA, income-related monthly adjustment amounts, which is a surcharge on your Medicare premiums. And so there's just a lot of things to balance. So, unintended consequences happen all the time when people try to do it themselves in a field which, frankly, most people haven't had any training in. And it's funny, I meet a lot with professionals, and some of them are of the attitude that, because they're excellent in their legal or their medical field or whatever it is, they're also therefore equally good in my field, which is kind of funny because I have no problem paying attorneys, accountants, and doctors for their expertise. But sometimes people assume that they know things that they don't. And I'm not trying to knock any particular profession. I'm just saying sometimes it's easy to not know what we don't know and cause unintended consequences that can be very painful. So I would say when it comes to these matters that have sometimes irrevocable or unchangeable kind of consequences, come meet with us. Come meet with the professionals who specialize in these things, because you just don't know what you don't know. We can't leave some things to chance. We don't get a do-over with retirement. So come visit with us.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Talk about these unexpected consequences. Again, come visit with Mark and sit down one-on-one. And by the way, guys, if you already have a current income plan, retirement plan in place, nothing wrong with getting another set of eyes on there. Or if you're just in those beginning stages of, I don't know what to do, when, and how to get started, this retirement roadmap is really going to help you. Again, that phone number, 702-996-4050, 702-996-4050. The Fed, once again, they've been busy. They passed on cutting interest rates. The meeting was the last for Jerome Powell as chair, and the political path has been cleared for his successor, Kevin Warsh. So does that mean anything for future rates? Well, here's investment officer Stephen Oth on Fox Business.
The earnings numbers are powering ahead. Valuations aren't cheap, but they're what we would call fair. The setup looks pretty good. And, if you look at the demand figures, they're holding up in the economy. Retail sales, which is something we watch pretty carefully. Travel data looks good. Credit card data looks good. The investment numbers that are coming through look pretty good. And core inflation is holding in there. And so we see the Fed still cutting about 3 times between now and this time next year, which is kind of a Goldilocks environment for the economy.
Really, that's kind of a bold statement there. So, if the Fed really cuts 3 times over the next year, what should near retirees do right now, Mark, with cash and short-term bonds? Do they lock in today's yields? Do they stay flexible? Are rates still high enough to consider annuities? What are your thoughts?
Definitely they need to review things because, we are at historical highs if you consider the last 20, 25 years. Not when we consider the last 100 years, but certainly the last 20, 25 years. We've had this ramp up the last few years, and if rates, in fact, are going to go back down, now is frankly a great time to refinance our fixed income products. I'm thinking, for example, of a couple I just met with this last week where we were able to show them how to lock in rates of approximately 6%. We got over 6% in some cases that we can lock in for periods of 5, 7, 10 years even. And those kind of rate guarantees are going to change here if rates go down. And so it's a great time to kind of refinance our retirement plans, look at things a little bit differently. Of course, we should be rebalancing our portfolios regularly, but when it comes to fixed rate options, yes, let's get together because there's some wonderful opportunities now. I just bought a couple more accounts for myself to lock in some rates because some of these guarantees are going to change. And it's things you and I don't control, so let's take advantage of the opportunity while it's here.
Investment advisory services offered through Golden Years Financial LLC, a registered investment advisory firm. Insurance is offered through Golden Years Insurance Services. These firms do not provide legal or tax advice. Consult your own legal and tax advisors before taking actions that may have tax implications. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Insurance contracts' principal protection is based on the claim-paying ability of the respective insurer. None of the information contained on this website shall constitute an offer to sell or solicit to buy a security or insurance product. The information and opinions contained on this site or requested from this site are provided by third parties believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. They are provided for informational purposes only and are not a solicitation to buy or sell any of the products mentioned. Any media logos and or trademarks contained herein are the property of their respective owners, and no endorsement by those owners of Mark Cordner, Golden Years Financial, or Golden Years Insurance is stated or implied.